Go time.
Hello. Thank you guys for coming to the solution. How's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Oh. Did everybody have a good weekend?
Yes.
Or did it go too soon?
Yeah, I was like, it's too fast. Weekend's too fast.
Yeah, I know. It's like you blink your eye and then you right back to whatever. So I want to allow everybody to introduce themselves. We can start up at the top.
Hey everybody, my name is Chanel. I have a travel YouTube channel here and I'm a flight attendant and yeah, I speak Spanish self-taught, learning French self-taught, and I totally love being here.
Hey, this is Inaz. This is Inaz across all platforms. You can usually find me here on The Solution or on She Critique on Fridays.
Hello, my name is Shag. You can find me on Instagram. This is my name posted. And I also just started a sit-in podcast at Yet Here We Are. So look me up.
What up, everybody? It's Trigger Mike from the Trigger Mike Show on the Lapeef Network. Also have a YouTube channel, and I am Trigger Mike Show on all platforms.
Hey, my name is Zaira, and this is my IG handle. I own a business for tourism in El Salvador. So, that's it.
Have you ever been outside of El Salvador? Just curious.
Guatemala, yes.
Okay.
Nice.
I was kidnapped to Guatemala one time when I was little. Wait, that's another story.
Oh, damn. We're going to have to replay this. I didn't mean to open up that can. Whoa. We're going to talk one-on-one. I need to hear about this.
And I'm Curves. I'm so glad to have all of you guys tonight. So let's just jump straight into the first topic. So the first topic is the agenda to not have unity within the family. And we have a clip. Roll the clip.
Oh, damn.
Take your time.
Roll the clip. Just roll it. Like I'm a producer behind the scene, not you. Trigger Mike, roll the clip. Gotcha.
I was just trying something new. I didn't know if it was going to stick or not, but.
I got you. Well, I clicked on it. Hold on. Something's going on with the clip. Give it a sec. Nope. Clip doesn't want to roll right now.
Okay. No worries. So pretty much in the clip, he was explaining that like pretty much the government doesn't want us to have unity within the family. So that is why the woman is working more and the guy is working more. So we're paying more taxes. We're putting our kids in school. And what's happening is we're letting the school raise our kids and the family is too busy to have time with each other. So it's kind of breaking. There's not as much unity. But if it were to be more of a traditional way, the mother would be at home teaching the kids, raising the kids, and she would have more time to prioritize and support her husband. And yeah, it's pretty much like, if I could sum it up, it's pretty much what he was saying in the clip. So who would like to go first? Thoughts? Inaz?
I agree, right? And I think it's like more layered than that, right? Especially if we're going to be talking about the Black community. With the crack epidemic, with mass incarceration, and just the system that keeps people in poverty. I think that is divide and conquer, right? And so those were like the first steps to it. And now with the women's empowerment movement and encouraging women to focus on their work, and now it even being taken as far as like, you don't need a man, that whole narrative. is to destroy the concept of the nuclear family, right? And when you don't have family, you don't have community, and when you don't have community, you don't have progression, right? So I think that is a tale as old as time. I think it's been repeated through history over a multitude in very different ways. But I wholeheartedly agree.
For sure. Shaq, you want to jump in?
Yeah, so I kind of wish the video worked because I really wanted to see it, but
I know, I wish.
I
You
really
want to
wanted
try
to
again,
see
maybe?
it.
I don't know.
Them
Yeah,
things are gone. I'm texting you, boy.
adds
Okay.
like a lot of context. I mean, a lot of context and stuff like that. But I would say with the whole, so I guess first of all, I do agree with it. There is a lot going on, especially with women. I would say, as more women in the limelight become successful, a lot of the young women want to be that and more, but they think that they can just, kind of like what is it Inez has said about not needing a man and stuff like that. I think that's an issue. And I think that is kind of breaking up the unity because there's a lot of women out there that really believe that they don't need a man. They put these thoughts in their mind like, oh, I'm working on myself. I don't need that right now, this, that, and the third. So I just think that that has a lot to do with it. I also think a lot of the way the economy is, it's so expensive, so it's kind of forcing both parents or both individuals to work so many hours to make a certain income so they can take care of their family.
Yeah. So a lot of times people say government, and I don't think too many people have worked for the government in any capacity before to know that the government is not that efficient when it comes to putting down things for an entire ethnic group. What it really usually is, if we're going to say government, it's a small group. This is what they like to call the deep state that has a certain interest in seeing things go down. It's not like the president don't know what the hell going on. Most senators, most congressmen, and most congresswomen don't know what's going on. What I believe we always talk about the government is actually the private sector. The private sector has a huge interest in women. And the one thing I want y'all to take a notice to is that higher education is what started all this BS because the price of education has outpaced the increase in wage, right? So when women started going to school, school no longer became just a thing, it became profitable. So marketing education to women became a thing. Marketing basically everything. And from that model is why you see everything pushed toward women. The consumerist everything is pushed toward women. It doesn't really do anything for the government when you look at it on the back end. This country, let's say its foundation, its economy is built on the American mortgage. That means the government has more investment in people building families because families buy homes. Single people don't buy homes like that. I believe it's around 14% for women and 9% for men. Men don't really want to buy a house if they don't have to live in, unless they have a family to put in there. So it's really counterproductive for the government to have interest in single people. It doesn't really have it. Someone in the deep state might see a financial benefit in it, but it's really the private sector that has major interest in women being single and alone. I cannot drive anywhere in the Houston area without seeing new apartment buildings everywhere, even places they're not supposed to be, right? They're not really supposed to infiltrate the suburbs like that. It's supposed to be zoned off solely for single family homes, but nope, so many single people that decided to put new apartment complexes there, even though it's going to overcrowd the schools, right? So a lot of these businesses have huge interest in keeping women single and the
I've
family
been seeing that a
disjointed.
lot too. I've been seeing that a lot too, like a lot of apartment complexes right down the street from the house. And I'm like, what is this? Like, we
You've
are,
never seen that before,
yeah,
right?
I
Like,
was like, this is so much. And it's like they're making do with whatever little bit of space they got, and they're just building stuff. They build it so damn fast too. But um, were you done, Trigger? Okay. Chanel, did you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I totally agree with Trigger Mike. I believe Kevin Samuels talked about this some time ago that, the government benefits from two people who are dating paying rent in two separate places versus coming together, getting married, and sharing a home and sharing bills. So even though, what Trigger Mike was saying, the government doesn't have, much say in it, they do benefit financially from us staying single. Also, I would love if Black Americans can look into homeschooling more. It's so much different than how it was in the past. We can overcome the social problems that,
I'm homeschooling my son.
Oh, you are? That's
Yeah, and somebody actually
amazing.
laughed at me on the panel for it before. Like,
Absolutely not. I'm thinking about doing that. I would love to
Yeah.
do that for my future children. I
It's
think
awesome.
the test scores agree when it comes to, children's intelligence with homeschooling. And also you get to dictate what your children learn. A lot of us don't agree with what they're teaching in schools now. And I think we can mitigate that by teaching our own children, preferably the women, but I think it's just best that we take control of our next generation's education.
Absolutely, because they're pushing whatever they want on these kids, and sometimes they're not going to give you a warning about what they're teaching your kids. So my kid comes home and tells me something wild that they taught. Now I have to fight a teacher. I don't want to do that. You know what I mean? So anyway, moving on to Sahira.
Yeah, I agree with almost everybody said, like, touch really good points. But looking at it from outside of the United States, these things are happening in my country as well. But I would say it's a mindset, because the government or private sector can push us to, like having to work for both, people having to work, the mother and the father. But if you don't have the mindset that family goes first, then you're not gonna make it happen. Because for us, it's like, even if the woman has to go to work, what I have noticed the difference is that the man is always helping the woman. When they come home, she's not, or the man is not expecting for her to do everything. So she knows that's her job to do, and she's not complaining about it. But the man kind of meets her halfway, which what I've seen the difference, that the man only wants to be served or attended, and the woman has to go work and do all this stuff. But in what I see here, the difference is that men are always willing to do something. They're always helping in the house. So it's a mindset, because someone can push you to work, and the economy is, effed up everywhere in the world. Eggs are also expensive here. So, like over there, how much are you paying for it? Like $12 or something like that?
I saw a $6 carton the other day and was like, "What?
$6?
It's not even organic. It's
Wait, did you say $6?
It was the regular. That's why I was like, "Excuse me, did I?"
Like,
I didn't know this.
Maybe, but
Listen,
dang.
y'all, I went shopping the other day and spent $250, and I came home with 3 items. It didn't make sense.
Wow.
I'm exaggerating, but that's how it felt. I'm like, what did I buy? Like, it felt like I got
makes
nothing.
sense.
Like,
it's the same feeling.
It was crazy. But I do have a question really quick. Like, so I heard somebody mention something about like men not, like, because everything is so expensive, you need two people's income right now. And my question is, like, this might be a little bit off topic, but like, if you think that more men were making more, do you think that they would be open to financially taking care of all the bills? Or do you feel like it's only because they don't have enough? Or do you think if a man was in that position, he would be able, or he would be willing? Because I've heard some women say, like, men just want women to work. They saw their single mom work hard, so they just want women to work. So I'm saying, if you think that they have the finances to do that, would they do that? Just y'all's thoughts.
I think that it's not that they want us to work, but probably it's easier, and it removes some weight out of their shoulders, and they get comfortable, because that can happen to anyone. As humans, you get stuck in a position, and then you get too comfortable, and then you don't want to grow, because you're like, I'm comfortable here. Like, if anyone that has work, I think it happens to everybody. So when someone is removing some of their responsibility over your shoulders, you kind of feel like, well, I don't have to do it. But then you start to forget about other things, instead of like saying, okay, you know what, it's fine for her to work for 2 years while I accomplish this, get to this position, earn more money, and then she can stop working. That's a goal, and I will respect that. But people just get stuck. That's in my opinion. That's what happened.
Yeah. On that particular one, it's such a hard one to answer because I don't know what cultural basis we're going to use as the foundation for like women working or not. So I'll just base it like this. You have to understand, for most men in general, their advancement is tied to their family's advancement. So the second he starts making more money, it's literally in us to know that this means better provision and opportunity for my family first, before myself. Right. So I'm telling you right now, I don't have a statistic for it. Look at how many women get a new car before the husband. Right. Who's driving the better? Who's driving? Like my father, when he got his bag, there was a big ass Navigator sitting in front of the house one day, and that old ass Mazda truck. And I was like, whose car is this? Your mother's. So because she carries all my children around in it, right? So that is just the nature of man. My provision is tied to the advancement of the entire family. Now, the funny thing about this conversation about women working, women actually have two purposes. It's like whether you're working or not, you either need to be making money on behalf of the family or saving money on behalf of the family. I think what men have a problem with is you thinking you not working and draining me because he's just going to wish he was married to somebody else. Right. So when we look at the people who do this correctly, effectively, they have a plan. Meaning, the wife is basically there saying, what do you need from me? When you see a woman staying home, she's saving money for the entire house. He's not eating out. She got the lunch ready. She all kind of way. She's worth her weight in gold in that way. Plus, she's willing to live under what he can provide with no complaint. So men would be perfectly fine with all of that. Remember, because people say, "Oh, men want lavish things." No, we don't. The first single dude you can remember. I'm sorry, first dude you ever went over his apartment. What the hell did that shit look like? That was men can live a minimalistic, yes, a very minimalistic lifestyle without women there. So we will not complain.
You know what, Trigger? You're absolutely right. Because a guy told me this before. He was like, I don't really care. Like, I'm okay with living like bare minimum. Like, I can eat a sandwich every day. I can live in an apartment. Like, I don't care. He was like, but I feel like if I had a woman in my life, like it would force me to work harder because I would want to give her certain things and let her. And I was just like, why wouldn't you want that for yourself? In my head, that's what I'm like thinking. But now hearing another guy say it, like, it puts things into perspective. It makes sense.
So I want to take it
sorry, go ahead, Ina.
Thank you. So I just want to take it a step further, right? Like when that woman is at home, because she's taking full responsibility of the home, right? Like in terms of managing it, in terms of the upbringing of the children, she's also taking that off that man's plate, which only increases his productivity. What happens is with stay-at-home mothers, stay-at-home wives, it's not that they're not doing anything, right? Like there's still labor involved in taking care of everything that's inside of the home, especially if he becomes wealthy, then there are multiple homes to manage, right? Mm-hmm. So with him not having to worry about that, the details of that, the finances around that, it is just completely taken off of his plate. Those extra hours then get put into work, which only continues to increase what he's bringing home, right? So everybody benefits from that dynamic. I think to your question, Kars, what's happening is that women have been taught that in order for their labor to be valued, it has to be in the labor market and not in the home. And so I think that men are now retaliating by saying, well, okay, if that's what you want, then you're going to have to fit the bill for some things, right? I don't think that it's necessarily that the cost of living or the cost of just like having children has gone up. I think it's the amount of things that people feel they need in life, that consumerism, that materialism. I think there's just too much of that going on. And people are not choosing to live within their means. I don't know what the stat is in the US, but I think in Canada, they're spending $1.70 for every dollar that they're earning. The average Canadian is living in debt, right? Most people are not living within their means. And I think that is really where like this false narrative of life has gotten too expensive. No, you just haven't learned to live within your means and you're trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? And that has just made things so much more complicated when it comes to finances.
was really well said, Inaz.
For sure.
I
For
I
sure.
totally agree with everything you said. And also to add on to that, and also what Trigger Mike was saying, other cultures and maybe even olden days in the United States, women always worked. It was just for their husbands, whether it was secretarial work or whatever they were good at. They worked for their husbands as well as took care of the home. So we could consider that if we're not trying to go back to, the 9 to 5 workforce. That way you're saving money, you're, putting money into the family, and you're creating generational wealth for your future children or your children. So that's also something that I think we need to, look into and think about, because we women, we're helpers. That's what we're supposed to do. That's in whatever aspect that could be. We are here to help our men. And it could be just taking care of the kids, it could be with his business or whatever it is. That's what we're here for.
But like a lot of women these days, they kind of see things differently. But for me, I agree with you. As a woman, I do see myself as a helper first. I put my husband and my kid before all my outside choices. And that's even with work. So like if I had a chance at a really good position, it's just natural for me to be like, okay, husband, how do how does this fit in? How does this, do that? But a lot of women these days, I don't think they do that. They feel like that they have to always cover themselves because of what the societies these days are putting out, as in, oh, ladies, you need to make sure that you got your stuff together, because if a man leave you, you ain't gonna have this, you ain't gonna have that. But it's really not really like that. I think that somebody had put that poor message out there, and I think it has been toxified into a lot of women's head the wrong way, but it's really not like that. So I think that that whole narrative has been really misled by a lot of females. So that's why a lot of women may look down on other women who put their husband first, who put their kids first, and then put themselves last. Because I know personally, like I got kind of like bad comments from some of my friends. Like when I would serve my husband his food first and do stuff like that, they're like, what, that's normal? I'm like, well, baby, number one, this is my household, this is how we do, and he taking care of business, so we good over here. But
were these married women or single women asking you this question?
they were both. It was weird. It was both. But
Mm.
the married, okay, so the other married woman that asked me that, she's like a workaholic. So it's like our lives were just like, we're just two different married women. So it's like she really didn't like, that wasn't her go-to thing first. It's like her job and then her household. But for me, it was opposite. So I was like, okay, well, honey, I can't relate to that because, it is what it is. But I think, that false message has been put out there to women that you have to come before the family that you help create with your husband. And I just wish that women will fix that message, because it's not as bad as it sounds. I promise. You just have to pick a great guy, and you guys have to have the conversation, like put it out there before you just go and just do all the crazy decisions. So
Yeah, it's all fear based. Whatever
I was
you
about to
water
say
will
that.
grow. You
yeah.
gotta water your relationship and work towards something together. You can't just be like, well, he's gonna leave me, so let me have my little nest egg. Then he will definitely leave you because you won't be putting that effort into your actual relationship, into your family. So we really have to stop being so afraid. Yes, you have to pick correctly, like Shak said. Yes, you have to, but when you're in a marriage, you have to put that effort in every single day, even when you don't feel like it, or else it will fail.
I love hearing this come from two married women. That's super dope. I'm just saying it's helpful. So next topic. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to add before we move on?
I wanted to say that happened to me too. Like, there's this girl that asked me, like, because I see it as a privilege, like being able to stay with your kid at the house and taking care of them. So thank you, pandemic. There's few things that we can thank to this thing. I can say that it made me realize that I didn't want her to go back to work if I didn't have to, and I didn't have the privilege to stay with my kid. She was going to daycare since she was 3 months. So when I had the pleasure, privilege, and blessing to stay with her in the house and, give her a warm food and all that, it felt really good to the point that when I went back to the office 2 years, staying home after I went back, I was like, I don't want to be here. I don't. So I had to find something to do that I could do from home without, because my daughter is 10, so it's not a baby that needs me all the time. So I can still do something and do something productive and not having to, not take care of my house. So when this girl asked me, and I told her I want to stay with my kid, and that was the reason why. She's like, what? No, I want to grow. I want to be successful and la 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 la. And I was like, you don't have someone to support you, and you don't know what it feels like to just like, and not being afraid of just letting yourself go and knowing that someone got your back. So I totally agree that that's coming out of fear.
Yeah, I think a lot of women have been traumatized. Well, some, I don't want to say a lot. Some women have been traumatized, and like it's that woman that's been traumatized with a bad situation who goes and puts out that message of just in case, and it's like, baby, that was your experience, and I hate that for you, but that doesn't mean that's going to be everybody. I don't think you should be pushing that on everybody, because like, look what we have right now as we speak, which kind of slides us into the next topic. Chanel, were you going to say something?
I was just briefly going to say success doesn't always have to be monetary. You can have a successful family. Sometimes women today, we're seeing success as, oh, I got this, promotion and da-da-da. But success can be watching your children grow into amazing human beings. So we should change our minds about that.
For sure. I love that you just said that. Go ahead, Trigger.
I was going to say, Shaq, I think you got a fan in the chat.
I know. He's so supportive. Gotta love him.
So, Trigger, can we roll that? Well, you think that next clip will play? The second one?
These clips then disappear. In fact, what I'll do is let me drop down and see if they'll come back up. So just keep it rolling. I'll be right back.
Yeah, no worries. So the next topic is kind of similar, but it's a little different. It's why are women prioritizing their careers over families? So I think Chanel was just touching on that a little bit. I see it all the time, and I think like for a while I was like that, but I'm like, dang, like time is ticking, and I really like I think I would much rather have a family than worry about how much I'm making. Oh, being a boss, like I'm good on that. Like my man can be the boss. Like I'll be the boss over the inside of the house a little bit. You know what I mean? The boss in the kitchen, but I'm not, so I think I wish, are we able to play the clip? No. Okay, so all right, cool. I'm just gonna have to give you guys a summary again. Andrew Tate, I'm sure a lot of people know him. And pretty much in that video he was asking the ladies, it was a whole bunch of ladies in the room, and he was asking them like where do you see yourself, like what's more important to you, and they were all pretty much saying like my career. And then he was explaining to them, that's crazy because my grandmother just turned 90, and at her birthday party like 70 of us in there, we all came from her. And then he was saying like nobody cared about her career, nobody cared about her accomplishments, what club she was in. They loved her, and this is what came from her. Like, so family is more important than career. So that was his take, and how many women were like career. I mean, I thought it would at least be 50-50, but all those women were all saying career. So I'm just like, what is y'all, like, everybody's thoughts on that? Like, what do you feel is more important to you personally?
Like, honestly, do you think that even men wants to work? Nobody wants to work. Who wants to work?
Whoa.
No.
You stay over there. It's our purpose.
No.
You stay over there.
I understand that. Like, okay, if there was no jobs, you just have to go and hunt. You will go hunting. That will be your job.
Work. That's work.
Saying, yes. And you want to do those. You want to do those activities. But honestly, if you don't have to put yourself in that position, if you don't have to do it, you're not gonna do it. You're gonna stay comfortable.
No,
rich men.
Okay,
rich men. Hold on. I'm not done yet. Right. Rich men, even though they have money, they still go to work. They still do it because that's part of their nature. They still do it. I'm not saying that. I was just
Well,
saying
okay.
it, you know,
Let
in
me
a joking way.
really quickly let me define the difference between rich and wealthy. I have a lot of rich people in my family, and they won't be rich if they don't work. So being rich is not a necessarily a great. It just means you have a lot of cash at any given time. But if you stop working, it's going to start going in the other direction. Wealthy people don't have to work if they don't want to because they
But they still
generate
do it.
money. Whether exactly, but that's actually telling you kind of like not even the purpose of man, but the just what's in us in general. I don't know if this is the best way to describe it, but take a little boy and a little girl, very close in age, and see how the girl, what her behaviors are. She can sit down, she can read, and you look at the boy just rolling all over the place. That is basically what men will do if you try to sit them down and tell them not to do anything. We're going to find something. We're going to go manifest something in the world. We're going to start playing with things. Then like, look what he built. I want to go do that too. You will find us separate ourselves from the women in a way that just starts to become productivity, right?
True.
Whereas the
True.
women, not even that the women are relaxing, they are just taking care of something. They might be reading. They might, all of these things that they just tend to like to do. Boys don't. A group of boys won't do that. Like that's just the way men are. We're gonna work. We actually
Keep the
not
plants
even gonna
alive.
say like work. We just like the result of something we've built, and we like to be a part of something. So that's mostly what I meant by purpose. You want to get your gold star from society, right? You don't want to be known as useless, So that's why I'm like, we're gonna work regardless.
Right. But in reality, if you don't have to stress, this is the point. Nobody wants to stress out for nothing. Like, if you can figure it out sooner than later, why are you gonna take too much time when you could have done something? Like, work smarter, not harder. So that's one thing. But also something I've noticed is that people, when you get older and then you've retired and you don't have nothing, you haven't been productive, you stop being productive pretty much. These people actually have more chances to, die sooner because they don't have nothing else to do. That also
Exactly.
affects people. Affects we get affected by it, so we have to do something. Just like Trigger might say, it's not like we don't want to work, we don't want to stress out for nothing. So we have to find something to do as women in the house. Like if you're staying mom, you're not doing anything. That doesn't mean that you're not doing anything. You stay in the house. There's a lot of work to do. Even watering the plants, that requires energy. Like feeding
So,
the pets or walking the dogs, things like that. It requires energy. But what I'm trying to say is that we have to be productive. We have to find something to do to help the other person. And at the end of the day, enjoy it. Just enjoy it.
so where you live currently, are the women super like career driven? Like, are they like boss B type mentality, or do they still have like that traditional attitude about things? Because a lot of these men are like going out of seas to get a different type of woman. So I'm saying, are they like that there, or
Right. So internet will get you exposed to other cultures, unfortunately, because they learn it from somewhere. So we do have some women that are like that they think that, being successful or having a career is the most important thing. But it depends on how you've been raised, because you can still have that in your mind, but the ultimate goal is always to find someone, get married. Your parents will always be telling you, when are you going to get married, when are you going to find someone? They're always on your neck telling you, I don't like this guy for you. So it's, for us, it's kind of like you marry someone, you marry their family, and vice versa, because we're going to become a one huge family. The gatherings is always a lot of people invited, so Latinos are like that. But we do have a little bit of everything, and that's why I was saying earlier, it's the mindset, because you still could work with, like having to work with your husband and have separate jobs. But when you come home, your money, you use it for the house. If you want new curtains, you buy new curtains. You want new pillow sets, you buy pillow sets. You don't use it for your nails, for your hair, for your dresses, for your luxury stuff. You use it for the house. Or you want your kids to go to swimming, then hey, let's use it for our family. So the money is used for or within the household. So it's a different mentality, I would say, or a mindset.
Got it. So, Shaq, what are your thoughts on this? Like, why do you think that women are choosing or prioritizing their career over their family? And what I think I kind of know what you would choose family, obviously, right? Okay.
But the reason why I would choose family is because I've been that career woman early on, like in all of my 20s. I know what that career life is, and I'm not gonna lie, it was fun, it was cute, whatever. But deep down inside, I always knew that I wanted to be a mother and I wanted to be with my kids every step of the way. I ain't want no daycare. I ain't want none of that. I wanted to be there every day of my
Yeah.
child, and I knew that at an early age. So, and the reason why I kind of wanted that because, I kind of grew up in a traditional home. My dad was a worker. He handled business, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and she was great. So I always looked up to her, but I always looked up to my dad too. So I kind of did both. So like I was that career woman early on, but I was like, man, I got to figure something out. Like, girl, got to retire early. I got to be with the kids. So I did the military thing, and honestly, that was probably the best thing I could ever do because it's going to take care of me and my kids for the rest of my life. So like if anything happens to my husband, I'm still good. And if anything happens to me, they're going to be good. So taking that route, like that helped me forever. So that was the best decision I made because I don't care about no fancy person. I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I do got a few, but I really don't care about that. I just want to be there for my kids. I want to be there for my husband. But I think a lot of women may put their prioritize their careers because a lot of material things that they want. A lot of them value the material things, and I wish a lot of them knew that. I mean, I would rather have a family in the long run than a fancy ass bag. So,
Right.
so that's what I think it is. I just think it has to do with materialistic. And I also think it has to do with them being able to say, you can't tell me what to do. I got this on my own. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
But it's okay to be successful. It's okay to be a woman to be successful, this, that, and the third. It's okay. But just be careful while you prioritizing that. As women, we're getting older. So, and things are different for us than it is for men. Men can be old as hell and somehow got a wife and family. But
Facts.
women, we getting older and we get judged the older we get. So
Right. You go into auntie land.
exactly, we get judged the older we get. So it's like, just keep a good mind out. But it's cool to be about your work and stuff like that because I support all the women out there that put their careers first. Go ahead with your little bad self, okay? Because I'm all for it. But just don't lose focus of like the bigger picture at the end.
I was gonna say, yeah,
Nope.
like at what point does it go too far? Like at what point is it like
When you're
going
45.
too far for
I was gonna say that there's nothing wrong with being successful. The problem is you throwing it in somebody's face and disrespecting, thinking that your career makes you better, a better human being, or better in anything. I think that's the problem because men don't have a problem if she's working, but the problem is they start disrespecting men just because, and that doesn't give you. I think that's the problem.
Oh, you
So
mean doing the whole comparing thing? I'm sorry, Trigger. Go ahead.
okay. So I love everything everyone has said so far, and that's what I really wanted to touch on was that last part I think Sayer was getting to where yes, women are using it as a um, bargaining chip, to start disrespecting their men and start negotiating things that women have never traditionally tried to negotiate. So I've basically boiled it down to women are choosing career over family because of lack of discipline and the ability to abuse power. That's the simplest way I've said it. The reason I say lack of discipline is because it takes a lot of discipline. Like this is what I don't like. A lot of the stigmas about African men in general or Nigerian men in general, because I don't know if anybody's looking, but somehow we are very traditional men and we've managed to create the most educated woman in the United States of any woman, not black women, of any woman. Nigerian women are the most
You're
educated
Nigerian?
women. Yes.
Oh,
So
cool.
for people to say we're overbearing and we created the most educated, the most corporately placed. Like they get number one in corporate placement, CEO, Nigerian women came from, and most of them came from two parent. Large majority came from two parent households where the father was the head of the house. He pushed academic excellence more than the mothers do. The mothers push the traditional stuff. It's the father that pushed education. So in this group of people, we've basically found out a way for women to be the highest tier. Remember, they're STEM. Nigerians are STEM people. All right. Engineering, medical, all of we're STEM people. And these women who are surgeons, anesthesiologists, I have several of them in my family, still go home and serve their husbands. So it is the lack of discipline of Western women to think that just because you don't even, let's just be real. Most of them aren't even surgeons. Most of them are underwater basket weavers trying to negotiate with their husband, talking about they're not going to do something. That is a real lack of discipline and abuse of power. The other part of it is that I'm working, so I want to negotiate such things like gender roles. Now, I think someone said it, maybe it was Saira, men actually do help simply because the circumstances have changed. When I go to, like, we were at gymnastics on Thursday, it's half fathers there. The mother's not even there because she's at work. Right? So fathers have to step in and help. The part where I feel like women really don't get is that when you need help, it's not always appropriate to ask your husband the type of help you need. The reason other cultures are going to overtake Western groups is because they know the right way to get help. It's time to move a mother-in-law in. It's time for your sister to come help. It's time, like, you're making demands of your family, not your man, right? And that's the way to do it appropriately. So I really just think it's the lack of discipline and the abuse of power that has women thinking their career is more important than their family. And I think, lastly, I'll say, you'll notice women still want to serve. They're just serving the wrong agenda. Women still want to serve their boss, right? You still want to get up early and put all that stuff on for your boss, but they're choosing to give all in one area and not both as they should.
So I wholeheartedly agree with everything that you had to say, Trigger Mike. And I just wanted to add one more point, right? Because you brought up the underwater basket weavers. The program you take in higher education is also where that indoctrination comes in, right? Like when you're in the STEM fields, they're not reinforcing modern or non-traditional roles in the household, right? It's strictly about the education, the facts, and how to do your job. When you get into the social sciences, well, then we start to question, like, is there value in women working, like women's unpaid labor? Is there value? Like, society doesn't value these things. And so when you're a young adult, you're still impressionable. And as you're kind of leaving the household and being indoctrinated by these very liberal ideologies, and if we're honest, higher education is full of liberal ideologies, that becomes where, even though your upbringing has been more conservative or more traditional, you start to see some women shift, right? Because they're taught, hey, now you have these opportunities that you wouldn't have considered before. And then you're being taught that what you were planning on doing doesn't have value. Where's your value? It's in the labor market, right? And so that just kind of adds that additional layer to it, where even though everything goes right in the household and you have that proper upbringing and you have that proper example, that people are still veering off course.
It's like, to the question, maybe I missed it, but I was like, would you prioritize family or a career? Like, what do you feel like for you is more important?
So much like Shaq, I've done the career thing. Still doing it because I haven't found my husband yet. But I was joking with a coworker the other day, like, I can't wait for my husband to be like, all right, whenever you want to quit your job, I'm just like, I'm ready, right? I think family is really important. And, being at that stage where a lot of the people around me have started to have families, and understanding and seeing like the real life results of what a stay-at-home mother can actually do for a child's development, even before they're the age of like kindergarten or whenever they start, is huge. And I've seen the difference between the working moms and the stay-at-home moms, and I want to be able to give my future children the best possible chance in their future, and that starts from like while they're still in the womb, right? And so I would absolutely give up my career for my family.
Nice. Chanel?
Definitely would. It's amazing because when I was single, I was a pretty new flight attendant and I was working egregious hours. And after meeting my now husband, we spoke about it, and I'm just so thankful for my job because I can take a lot of time off. I can work minimal hours, and just like Shaq was saying, you set yourself up for your family. So I just feel like God has blessed me because I have like the dream job where I can stay home most of the time and raise my future children. And I think if women probably think of a job in that kind of way, like, hey, how can a job service my future children? Then maybe they can get best of both worlds if that's what they actually want. But for me, it's family first. Like, I can't stress that enough. That's something that we as a people have to do because no one else is valuing our family. So we have to.
And
For
let me
sure.
just add this to what she's saying, because I don't think a lot of things hurt me on YouTube and things that are said, but one of the things that really disappoints me is when people act like men don't want women to work. I have yet to find a man that cares enough like about a woman working. They're like, they really don't exist like that anymore. Men do not care. The the real thing is that we need our women. It's not even that we want. Women need to be adaptable when it comes to their careers. So I even have friends that work for the airline, like Chanel does. And the moment she got pregnant, she stopped being a flight attendant. Now she works in some other administrative role with the airline. That's it. So she's in station wherever she was at. Oh, it's Atlanta, right? She works for Delta. That's where they station. So she's working for the same um corporation in an administrative role so she could be there for her family. Now here's where that's important, because I see a lot of women when they hear me say that say, why can't the man adapt? Your man should never be the one that needs to adapt to you, because you are the one that is going to go through changes throughout your entire life. A smart woman knows never mess with your husband's job or the way that he works. He's going to work the entirety of his life. If he bends to your will, you're going to regret it. Right. So if you hold him back, if you make him miss promotions, if you try to do all that stuff, when you ultimately leave the workforce 15 years before him or start working part time, it's going to make the whole family look stupid. You're going to feel like you held everybody back just because of the nature in which women work. You take breaks, you go part time, you take maternity leave, you do all this stuff. It's very rare that a woman's going to out earn her husband throughout the entirety of their marriage. Extremely rare. It doesn't matter how much more money you make than him, you will just stop in a manner that means that he will naturally overtake you, so you don't ruin what he has going on. You just got to make sure you're the adaptable one. And remember, never in life have we heard a woman say she wished she would have worked more at the end of her life. They never say that, ever.
Yeah.
I wish I would have made more time for my children. I would have.
But you got some
Hell no.
you got some women who are like super feminist, all about that, and they can't wait to go back to work after they had a child. Like, they're like, get the baby out, and they're just ready to finish pursuing what they were doing. Like, there's some women who are like that, like they're less attached to that whole thought process. I think that like the women that we have on this panel, that we all have like similar mindsets in regards to that. But there are some women that are like,
we have to analyze why. I think we have to analyze the why, the behind reason why they have to go back to work. They want more money. They have things to pay. Like, it's something that doesn't let them stay, because I just don't agree that it's just because.
So
they can't let go.
I think it's actually a control thing, right? I think Trigger Mike said it was a lack of discipline. I think it's actually the desire for control. I think some women are either choosing the wrong partner or have not worked through the things that they need to work through in order to release this need for control. And a career is the one thing that you can absolutely control, right? To some degree, you can control your income, you can control promotions. Like, men understand that really well, right? You put in the hours, you do the work, you don't complain, you don't make excuses. There's a clear formula to it. But we've seen time and time again that allows men to have control. And I think some women aren't willing to give that up in a relationship, and so they utilize their career to maintain control.
So okay, so y'all might, be think I'm tripping, but just hear me out real quick. So I've been around men who prefer, or I'm not gonna say prefer, but who really don't care if their woman works or not. And I've been around men who are like, yeah, work, I want you to work, I want you to do that. Like, if y'all ever get a chance, randomly you out, just pay attention to those two type of men, and you will see a significant difference in how they carry themselves and how they, and like, I guess just basically how they move, and you can kind of get an idea of what that household will look like. Because I've been around men that are like, yeah, I want my woman to work, she got to make this much, she got to do this, she got to do that. Those men are usually thinking like, all right, look, I don't know if this shit really gonna work, whatever. So she need to have her own security, because I'm worried just in case she might dip out and take all my stuff. I want it to be fair. Versus men who say, I really don't care. Like, if because I want to hold us down, but she just got to be willing, to understand that we're at this level, this, that, and the third. And I feel like those men are more usually looking for like, okay, like long-term family wise, and they move differently. That's just kind of like what I've experienced. So I don't know, y'all. I'm not saying it's true. I ain't saying it's facts. I ain't got no numbers, so don't put me in the chokehold, chat. I'm just saying that I've noticed that those are significantly two different type of men. So just pay attention. Like, some women are just looking for different things, and for me, I just prefer like a choice. So I move in my life just so whoever I'm with, I want to have the choice.
You want to have the choice whether you work or not.
Yeah, I want to have that. I want that to be a choice. So just, I just wanted to say that. I know y'all might think I'm tripping, but yeah, when you out, just try it. You'll see. You'll see.
I actually agree.
I could definitely believe it. When I told my husband, like, hey, when we first got married, hey, I want to cut back on hours. He was like, yeah, definitely, do that, and I'm like, okay, it was so relieving. And I just couldn't imagine coming home stressed, angry, wanting to beat him up, and him liking me. You know what I mean? Like, working every day, especially if you don't like your job or your career, it's going to affect your marriage in different ways than one. You're going to be more masculine. You're going to be angry.
I was just about to ask that question. Do you feel like from a wife who works, but you don't have to work a lot, you can kind of pick your schedule versus, like, do you feel like you're able to be more in your feminine energy because, like, you don't have the weight and stress of, like, having to cover all your bills or even half, you know what I mean? Like, if does that put you in like a better state? Like, because I heard a lot of women, and this is not me, this is just, I've heard a lot of women are being more masculine because they're having to take on a role that, some women don't have to. So they're more, relaxed and able to be different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I definitely feel more myself, if I can, say that. I feel me when I'm not working as much. The career path that I had prior, it was so competitive and so masculine. I was single at the time, but I remember feeling like I'm not myself here. So I have to, find a different way to make money and still be my sweet, kind self. And my job in and of itself is a very feminine role, except if people don't listen. But, in and of itself, it's a very feminine type of work. So when I come home, I'm just still myself. I might be tired, but I'm still me. And then when I, take long periods of time off, I'm just like, I'm taking care of the home. I'm making sure I'm actually redecorating the house right now. So it just feels so right. It feels like me. And I really wish that for other women, especially Black women, that they can, find a loving husband for themselves, and that they can, if they choose to work, that they don't have to come home and feel like they're in war with
So let me add to what you're saying, Chanel, because this is actually very important, and I think you've taken a very mature approach in explaining this. Because what a lot of husbands are going through, and when I talk to, a lot of my friends, the issue I think a lot of people are experiencing is, remember I said a lot of wives use their education and their job as a bargaining chip in a relationship. And they are the ones forcing the issue that they need to work as many hours as their husband, and they need to push forth, and we need to find help in other ways. We need to pay for daycares and aftercares and all of this. Then when the woman naturally wants to cut back, that's what women do, especially after they have children. Before or after, but definitely after they have children, they want to cut back. And the issue is that most likely they've negotiated a more lavish lifestyle. They have a bigger home. They have all of these bills and things. Then she wants to cut back. And when she realizes he might be going through the natural progression any man goes through at work, right? He's gotten promoted through the ranks. He's made just as much as all his buddies his same age make. But when she cuts back and he's not able to finance that all by himself, they will blame him. That is what is going on in modern America today, where women don't really recognize themselves as women or their nature at all. They don't realize that they should have stayed in the townhome and not bought the big home. They don't realize, like, you see what I'm saying? They don't realize that maybe I need to be more aware and live a softer life, a more minimalistic life. So he allows me, when it's time to cut back, he's 100% for it. Like, we can do that. Yeah, because you're just going to cook more meals. You're going to go get the kids. They'll love to spend more time with you. Men will love to see that. But I think my advice to the men, because I don't want to blame it on women, for the women, don't rush. Like, don't rush into all of this stuff thinking that you have the capacity for work, like the same way, like 80 hours a week, like, like men do in factories, because that's likely not going to happen. And for men, my advice to you is, don't let her rush you. Like, do not let her. Be realistic and learn to tell your wife no. Because if you know the nature of a woman, he shouldn't have let y'all buy that big ass house, because it was going to take both of y'all to finance it.
But like a lot of women, they don't. A lot of women can actually like live comfortably and be okay, and they actually can cut back on their hours, but because they looking around them and who they kicking it with or who they desire to be like, that's what's kind of pushing the agenda as well. That's what's kind of making them want more. And I just think that that's like kind of sad in a way, which is why a lot of families, which is I believe why there's two working people in a household, because they want a certain lifestyle, and in order to, you're right. And if you want to keep up with that lifestyle and that's what you want, then if you look at it as a sacrifice, then yeah, some people do. But, kind of like you said earlier, a lot of women don't know how to be all about their career and be about home when it's time to be home. But a lot of the time, I just think it's about being up to date with everyone else. I think everybody just wants what they think they want, and nobody wants to be comfortable in their own way. They just want to be like what they see. And I think that kind of damages a lot of households. And I also think it kind of damages relationships before it even make it to marriage.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry.
No. I know you've been waiting to speak. You can go ahead.
I was just going to say, and it's a whole thing on YouTube. Women's money is women's money. Men's money is the family's money. Let's be for real. Like, a lot of women, we spend the most money, especially in the United States. So we have to be, and this is going off of Shaq's point, we have to be more mindful. If we're spending money on nails, makeup, hair, if we're using all of these funds to do these things, that's putting even more of a burden on our husbands. I think we should be more mindful of what we spend money on, because some of the things that we spend money on is not important at all. Learn how to do your own hair. Learn how to do your own makeup. Buy makeup from CVS. You don't have to go to the nail salon every week. These are things that we can mitigate to lessen the load on our husbands. But we want to live this lifestyle. And just like everyone else was saying, we want to compare to the other women on Instagram.
So how do women? Oh, go ahead, Enos.
Sorry, because I wanted to address that because I hear it all the time and it gets taken out of context. So I appreciate you, Chanel, for bringing it up. The whole my money is my money and his money is our money. So that was borrowed from the Muslim community because that is a core tenet of the rules of marriage. However, the context behind it gets left out because it's inconvenient to the agenda that people are looking to push, right? So yes, that exists. Yes, that is like a very real thing in the Muslim community. But the context is that the wife is obligated to never overextend her husband because Muslims are not permitted to live in debt. She is not allowed to ask of him more than he can actually provide, right? And so whatever income she's bringing in, if she wants additional luxuries, then that's where she does that to lessen his burden. And that's it's supposed to make things fair but equal, especially in the cases where a woman who's used to a more comfortable lifestyle that her father was providing chooses a man who, because marriage early on or younger is encouraged, who hasn't quite gotten there yet. It's to make like living together a lot more reasonable, a lot more functional.
And I definitely have heard that in the Muslim community, but I was just addressing it how we use it in, in the, I guess, Christian, I don't know, in the United States, in a more social acceptance. But we live like that. So that's the problem.
So my question was like, so because this is a solution, I'm like, I would love solutions. Like for you, I know Shaq was mentioning that like women, like naturally we see certain things. Like you could live a normal lifestyle because you might see your homegirl going out on a vacation with her man. Now all of a sudden you nudging him, showing him trips. Look, all we gotta do is say this, and now you want the same thing. You see her with a Chanel bag and a cute little dress. And now you scrolling online trying to figure out how you can get it. So like my question would be like, how do women not allow, like if if not, then this might just be a person to person type, they have to figure out themselves. But how would you suggest a woman, because you're on social media too, how do you not get caught up in that type of mindset where you're able to see things and be like, this is my life and I'm good, like I'm comfortable here? How do women get to that point where they're not allowing that to brainwash them and affect what they want and they think they deserve it just because they see somebody else have it?
Well, I know for me, I know what's real and I know what ain't real. And I know a lot of the time, all that stuff that be on there is really not what it is. And I also learned that it may look nice on someone, but guarantee you they were supposed to do something else more important with that money. So just because it looks good don't mean it is good. And I also remind myself like where I'm at in my space and how thankful I am. So I always try to keep that reality, like, that's just social media because people only post the highlights of their life, the good stuff. So we really don't know, just because somebody may have all this designer or they may be going on all those trips, we really don't know like how they getting that money. Hell, they could be scamming. They could be doing all this stuff.
Right.
You really don't know, how a lot of those people live. But I will say this, since me and my husband moved to Atlanta, I'm telling y'all, a lot of lives it really be fake, and it actually shocked us both. Like, shocked, like we thought we were looking like, well, damn, we doing good compared to, we don't gotta fake anything. Like we don't gotta fake nothing. So just, I just always keep in mind, like, a lot of that stuff is just not reality. And you also, and I feel like as women, because it's easy for us to get away and get caught up in certain looks and to certain things and material things and what we see, but you just have to be strong enough to know who you are personally. And I would say as another thing, it's important for a woman to love herself naturally before we add on makeup and all that other stuff. That's very important, because when you love yourself naturally, like, you're unbeatable. So
we project that.
Those are low key the girls that men like the most. If you want to know what it is about a girl, you can't put your thumb on it. It's when her natural, like, you know what I mean? Like, that effortless, natural thing the girls got going on, that light, airy thing. Woo! It makes
Okay.
dudes go crazy.
Do we have any super chats before we go move on?
I went ahead and started them all for you. Yes, I did. So.
Oh, somebody else got them. It's too small for me to read, honestly.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I'll do it. In fact, no, we got all these more literate women on the panel. Y'all go ahead. Y'all gonna make me with my third grade black man reader level.
All right. So Lamont R. Davis, $10. Women/wife. Women/wife should be an asset, not a liability. Modern women are just selfish. Men and women need to recognize God's order and the spiritual war that is happening. Mindset over material.
Indeed.
Marriage, politics, and sports, $20. Black women need to learn to be multidimensional, meaning she has to be able to be vulnerable or valuable in the job market while being open to marriage. May impact the career in some way. The narrative of one or other is false.
It is false.
Bruiser, 1999. Hey, love to the girl on the bottom left.
Huh? Which girl? This girl? Hey, boo.
You stupid.
Hey, boo.
Hey, Trigger, I think he was able to put the videos back up there if you want to run that last clip.
Got you.
So the last topic is going to be why do women...
We got more super chats.
Oh, we have
Just
more?
one more.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just one more.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
So marriage, politics, and sports again, $2. XOXO is on point. I don't know what that's referencing.
Oh, that's Shaq. Shaq's name.
Okay.
All right, so what would you say is the
Go ahead and
benefit
get
of monogamy? Oh,
That's not the one.
That's not the one?
No.
That's the last one.
That was the, oh my God, he sent the,
Gonna have it. If you're not.
No.
That was Andrew Tate. Hold on. He's doing
That, yeah, that was the one that we missed, the career one.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last question is, why do women stay after abuse? And in this video, it was just a short clip of this interview between this husband and wife. I can't remember if they were husband and wife or just in a relationship, but he obviously abused her, was beating the mess out of her, hospitalized her, and she lost her family, friends, because they pretty much didn't, like, you know, when family tries to save you from a bad relationship and you kind of keep going back. So it was one of those situations. So they got to a point where they just wrote her off. She lost her kids and a bunch of other stuff, but she was like, you know, the Lord wants me to stay by him and figure this out. So my question is, and a lot of women do that. There's actually statistics that say 1 out of every 3 women have dealt with some type of physical abuse from a person that they've been in an intimate relationship with. So like, why is that? Like, and I've seen it too. Like, sometimes you're like, why does she keep going back to this toxic guy or this person who may put his hands on her? Even verbal abuse, you know, that's bad too. Like, so why do you think that is? Anybody can go.
I'll jump in. Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
Have any of you been into an abusive relationship or dealt with domestic violence? So
go ahead.
So the reason of my question is because a lot of people would judge them and say, like, why do you think if you have never been in those shoes, you will never know? Now, I never told my friends. I never told my family. Nobody knew what I was going through. It's shameless. It's like you're ashamed of yourself because you let yourself get into that situation, because you know that it doesn't start with a punch. It starts with verbal abuse, emotional abuse, like telling you, why are you wearing that dress? Things like that. Very little things that you think that, probably doesn't mean anything. And then is an abuser, and an abuser person will create this damage in your head, and it will make you think that you are the problem. So that's part of the abuse. you being unable to recognize or see or getting out of it is part of the damage. You are able to see it and you want to get out of it, but the person, the abuser, is making you think that you are the problem, is brainwashing you to the point that you feel like, I provoked it, I made it happen. That's what happens with abuse. When you realize and when you go through therapy, that's when you realize. It took me 3 years of therapy, 3 years, to actually find out and break down every single thing, everything. Because nobody in my family could believe that I put myself into that position. But it didn't happen, like it wasn't happening, but the physical part happened until the end. And when that finally happened, that's when I said, you know what, this is enough. I'm not going to deal with this. And that's when I find out, and I knew, okay, so I have to call someone. And I called my sister. But my sister said, I cannot tell this to my father. You are the one that has to call him and tell him. And she literally pushed me and forced me to call my father. When I called my father, I didn't even have to tell him. Like, he knew me, and all I had to say, just get me out of here. And then he's like, just get your stuff ready and try to bring as much as you can so you don't have to go back. So I didn't even have to explain. Till today, I haven't told my dad. He knew what was happening. And, because in a way, that was his, he's not going to get involved until I say something. That was his part of respecting, what I was choosing. But that's all I can tell you for like why, is because that abusive relationship, or the part of the abuse or damages that doesn't let you get out of it, because you're thinking that you are the problem.
So every time you come back, you're like, it wasn't me. Like, you're thinking, you're feeling guilty. Like, I did something to cause that. So let me try again.
So let me give you an example.
Okay.
The first time, my daughter was 3 months, and he kicked me out of his house. He literally asked me to leave the house because, and this is personal. I don't care. People's gonna judge regardless. I don't care.
Right.
He asked me to leave the house because the bank called the house, his house now, because they wanted me to update the address, because I used to live in a different address, and they needed, like, they were like, oh, so you're not in the other phone number? And I was like, no, can I update my address and my phone number? So I gave them the information, and he's right next to me. He's like, why are you giving them my information? And I'm like, because I live here. And he's like, no, because if you get in debt, then they're going to come here and they're going to try to take my stuff. Literally that was the issue. And he literally asked me, you know what, you have to leave. And then the proud, I'm not going to say I was perfect. Obviously, it hurt my pride. And I'm like, what the heck? Okay, then I'm going to go. I was working and he wasn't. So I had a job, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to leave. That was a mistake. Yes, probably was a mistake. It was, it was my pride. It was hurt. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to leave. So I left. But that kind of expecting that's a wake up call, right? It did. It worked, because he realized that he's not just losing me. He's also losing his daughter. So then like a month later, he's like, you know what? Come back to the house. I cannot deal. And I did it. I came back because of my daughter, because I was trying to keep my family together. So you know what? All right, I'm going back. And I did. So the second time, other stupid shit like that happened. And it's like, it makes you think that you're the problem. But then if you look at it, what was the problem with me updating information? I was living in his house. I never felt like it was my house. It was my home. I was always asking, like, can I grab some of that juice? So when you're in your home and you feel like that's your home, you never ask if you can grab some of that juice. You just go, because that man makes you feel like this is your house. Anything in here is yours and you can grab it. But like that was part of the damage, that I never felt like it was home. If it makes sense.
I'm so sorry that happened to you, Saida.
Yeah, and I appreciate you being open enough to share that. Like, and forget what anybody has anything negative to say. Like, so you either know somebody who's been through something like that, but if you're that heartless to make nasty comments, that's on them. Like, but does anybody else have anything else to add?
Yeah. So
got into a physical altercation. He hit you.
Oh,
Yes,
here
he
it is.
did.
Oh,
Were you injured? What were the injuries? You all got into a physical altercation. He hit you.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Were you injured? What were the injuries?
Yes, I was injured. Black eyes. He choked me. Golf size knot. Of course, my engagement ring. I don't have that. I still don't have a ring. Memory loss as well.
So after all of this, you took him back.
Yes.
This decision cost you how?
Oh, this cost me a lot. It cost me my career. It cost me relationships with my family, close friends, of course, my father. And I had a daughter at the time that she was actually with Kyle and I, and I lost her. Also understand too that, you know, when you love someone, you just believe in God, you just have to forgive. And this was just a situation with Kyle that I just knew it was not him. He has always been a provider for me. He's always cared for me. And I just think he was just out of his mind.
So I'd like to go next if that's okay.
Please.
So this abuse and stuff is a very interesting topic because I've noticed that the women who some women they won't leave because of religion in like most cultures around the world. You know, that's just not a good enough reason to leave your husband, right? So then I realized in the States here, a lot of couples, they aren't grounded. Their relationship is not grounded in religion at all. And then you have to look at what I like to call hood shit. So I'm going to speak on that specific type of toxicity that I've witnessed over and over and over. And it even been like witnessed, like had to go get someone because of it before. So this hood stuff that I'm talking about, it's very weird and it's very toxic. A woman will stay after she's been abused. One, because she's likely also an abuser. That's one of the ways it can happen. They hit each other, not just him hitting her, and they believe that's what a normal relationship is. Simply because of the makeup sex they have after, or he bought me something after the fact. You see what I'm saying? They believe that this is what a normal relationship is supposed to be. And that is something I've witnessed time and time again. Like, whoa, what is that on her? That knot on her eye? What is that knot on his head? What are y'all doing to each other in this house that you think this is normal? And you want to have a talk with either the woman or the dude, like, yo, this is not healthy. This is not the way a normal relationship is supposed to go. When we get married, it was like, marriage? What? It's not going to get better. It doesn't make anything better, So that type of toxicity, I think, has become I'm sad to say, normal outside the bounds of religion, marriage, and everything that's traditional. All of these toxic trends can grow in relationships, right? Because everyone is literally running away from traditional norms, acting like they don't want to be guided by it. And these are the plants that grow.
I've never been in an abusive relationship, thank God. But my mother was. My father was horrible physically and verbally to my mom. I then moved to Trinidad and Tobago, where my mom is from, and was partially raised there by my aunt and uncle. And I was able to have a wonderful upbringing from them. The only memories of my father are him yelling and being physical with my mom, sadly. My mom, she's a very strong woman, and she talks about how in those times she grew up with her, mother and father in the home. So she desperately wanted that for myself and my younger brother, who was 3 months at the time. So she kept going back because she had that vision in her head, mother and father, I need to give that to them. Also, he had power over her immigration papers. So it was like she really wanted to become an American citizen so she can leave him and get the money to provide for us. So it was a really difficult time. And I understand my mom's situation because she's explained it to me. I've later spoken to my father, and he talked about how horrible of a person he was at that time. So from that experience, I can understand why a woman would go back. It's just not right, because if I grew up in that environment, if my brother grew up in that environment, we would be two completely different people today. And it's just not healthy. And I advocate for staying together in almost every situation. But that's one situation that I say that, especially with children, you have to leave. It's not right. And even if the man is getting physically or verbally abused, I think he has to leave too. It's abuse is not acceptable in my eyes at all, and I think most people can agree with that. But yeah, that's what I have to share.
Thank you for sharing that, Chanel. And I'm glad that your mother was able to, find the help that she needed to get out. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people who are not in those situations or haven't experienced either firsthand or secondhand never seem to really grasp of like why people don't leave, right? Like, and I think that's really where the conversation becomes really tricky, because you're asking somebody who is in fight or flight constantly, all the time, every single day, to think as rationally as somebody whose nervous system is not operating in that system. The brain just doesn't work like that. It can't receive and process information when you have time to relax and calm down, or like have a moment to like gather yourself, than when you're constantly in a state of, when is it going to happen again? Or even like in gaslighting situations where you're never sure what is grounded in reality and what is kind of being processed, you're told is reality, right? And I think the last statistic I heard is that the statistic is about women, because there just aren't enough statistics about men in abusive situations, right? But the statistic is that it takes a woman who is suffering physical abuse, which is usually, the last stage of abuse, 7 to 9 times of attempting to leave before she actually leaves. Right? 7 to 9 times. And Saida brought up the shame factor. That doesn't come out of nowhere. It isn't normally just out of like regular low self-esteem. It's somebody who has broken down that self-esteem. It's somebody who has isolated that person from any sort of support network, and is the only point of contact of any sort of validation or security, right? When you are controlling enough over somebody else of how they think, how they feel, where their income is coming from, their safety, physically, psychologically, all of those things in tandem, like that person is so out of sorts that they oftentimes can't make decisions for themselves. Their brain operates as if like a childlike state where they become dependent on this person. And so like telling people they just need to leave, I think, can sometimes really minimize that and add to that shame factor of like, well, why don't you just leave? I think if most people could, if they could actually process the abuse, they would. I don't know any rational person who feels safe who would choose to stay in that situation. Like, it's a setup, and like Saida was saying, it's a slow burn to get somebody there. It's very subtle, and it builds so subtly that it takes being out of the situation sometimes to be like, oh, that wasn't okay, right? And I think that there's a thin line between condoning it and excusing it, and having empathy and grace for people who just need a little bit more time to understand, like, this isn't good and this is how you get out.
Totally. I agree.
Oh, sorry.
I agree. Especially because when you said that it starts gradually and so smoothly with little things that my hair is very curly. Like, why do you have to buy so much hair product? So much hair product? Like, just cream for my hair and that's it. So then I wasn't buying the hair product, and then my hair is all messed up, and then it's pointing at flaws, like physical aspects, imperfections, that, oh, you're this, you're that. When I was pregnant, he would say like things, and it's like, it was funny because In my pregnancy, it was the opposite. I was going through really risky pregnancy, so I lost a lot of weight. And when he saw me that I looked better after my pregnancy, he started to feel more insecure, that he needed to put me down to make himself look better and feel better about himself. So those little things like that I totally agree with you. That's part of the process. But something that I wanted to mention, that on the video she says that she feels like she needed to be back. That it's not him. It's probably something, he's out of his mind or something, taking over him. Like, because you get to think those things. He's gonna change, or I'm gonna make him change. No, like I knew that after my daughter was born, I knew that I didn't want her to be in that situation, and it was just a matter of time, because I needed to recover. After I needed to get a job after the baby. So she was 3 months, I had a job, and I started working. He didn't like it, but I was like, I'm still have to do it. He was not working, so he stayed home with the baby, and he still needed to control me because I was working, and he couldn't control me while I was at work. So he said, you know what, I'm not going to take care of the baby. So that's when I decided to put the baby in daycare, because I knew that he wanted to have control over me. But I was aware, I was still conscious that this could happen. So I was just trying to, like, hey, this is a matter of time. I need to figure it out. When am I going to leave? Because I was trying to get myself out of that hole by myself, because I was like, I put myself in this situation, so I'm going to get myself out of it. Instead of asking for help. I could have done it quicker. It's just I was ashamed to ask for help, but I was aware. So I was living in his house for like 6 months, and like no contact. We probably, like, we didn't even talk at all. So this is something that I wanted to share as well. After I left, I never had intentions to go back with him. We've never been back ever. And I always say he could be the last person in this world. I would say, fuck humanity. I will not procreate with that man. Never. Fuck humanity, for real. But this is the funny thing.
I mean,
hold on. So he had another woman. She used to contact me. She used to call me. And I thought that she was genuinely trying to find some help, because she thought that I would be empathetic with her, and I was. But in a way, I was like, just, you know what? He's not gonna change. I'm so sorry. I cannot tell you to leave, but what I can see is that he hasn't changed. So I was not saying leave. I'm just saying he has not changed. And in my mind, I knew that he was not gonna change. They had a baby, and she abandoned the baby with him. And that right there made him change so much, to the point. I have forgave him. I forgave. He's the father of my daughter. I never stopped him for coming to see her. Like, whatever we happened between us, my daughter has no idea. I never talk bad about him. I never stopped from, he's the father of my child, and I always wish him well. I forgave him. But when this happened, I think I mentioned it the other day on the live too. He's now raising this kid on his own, and he asked me for forgiveness, because he said that he's now going through every little thing that he put me through, and he now recognized that his son needs a mother. And he noticed that I was being, like, caring for his little boy. Like, I'm welcoming him, like I'm kissing him, hugging him, like he's welcome every time that he's around. So I told him, hey, you need to teach him how to speak. He's 3 years old. He's not speaking. He's not saying anything. Like, you need to, like, hey, let's teach him the numbers, ABCs and things like that. So he now is kind of like, every time that he sees me, he's like asking for forgiveness. But, I forgave him a long time ago. What I'm saying is that it required for him to go through all this pain on his own to be able to say, you know what, I kind of effed up. And I still think that he would do it again. But
I think that takes so much, like, courage and love. Like, I can't even explain to you, because I'm just gonna be real with you. I would not be able to do that shit. I would, even if I forgave you, I don't know if I would be able to help you out, because, like, you did me dirt. So, like, you're like an angel human to me, honestly, because I don't think, and I might be able to speak for a lot of women. I don't think most women would do that, given the circumstances that you had to go through. So, like, that's really sweet. And I love to hear it. Like, I remember you telling that story yesterday. I didn't know that child, that was an abusive ex of yours. So that's like kudos to you, honestly. Shaq, did you have anything you wanted to add like to this?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, y'all story is very, I don't know what the hell if I do that if I was in new situations, because kind of like what Courage for Life said. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy, but I don't know. I do appreciate y'all sharing those stories, because I know one of my good friends, she was in a situation like that, and I would witness some things. And the worst decision I made was I inserted myself because it was making me angry. But that was the wrong thing to do because she wasn't ready to let go. And I had to learn that. So once I inserted myself, it was pretty much like, oh, she got a strong friend. I gotta break that up. Because if I let that strong friend stay next to her, then eventually she gonna know how to leave and walk out. So like he would try to like tell her, she can't, you can't hang with her, you can't hang with her, I can't do that. So I just took a step back, and it hurt me because I love her. And we're still friends to this day, but I had to like kind of like had to wait till she was done dealing with that. And it hurt so bad because a kid came out of it, and it's so crazy because, an innocent child came out of it. And it's like, as soon as the baby came, then she left. So I would ask her, like, why did it have to take that? I never understood that because I've never been in that situation. And I would ask her that. And she told me, like, when she looked into her baby's eyes, like, that gave her the confirmation, like, I got to get out of here. But I'm just sad it had to take it to that point. But that's what she told me, and I respect her for that. But being like having to see that with somebody that you really love, like that sucks. Because now it's like, you created a child, so now you have to raise that child with this man that treated you like that. So be ready for him to give you hell and vice versa. And it's not going to be smooth, and it's still not smooth till today. But I always tell her, like, you just have to deal with it, and you just have to do the best you can. But I just hated to be that person to be there watching, because it really did suck, and it made me so angry. So I wanted to say that. And I also wanted to say, I think that whether it's the man doing the abusing or the women doing the abusing, I feel like when they are seeking these men or women out, I feel like they kind of know, like while they're dating or while they're talking, if they can run over that person like that. And I think a lot of the times the man or the woman, whoever the abuse or whoever is on the opposite side of the fence, they miss those red flags because they're so happy in the beginning and they're dating and everything just seems so fun, but they miss those red flags. So you have to watch out for men and women like that, because sometimes they look for weak people on purpose so they can do that stuff too, so they can have people follow them. So I just think that like a lot of women and men who end up in those situations, they are avoiding those red flags because they're there. But you be so happy y'all talking, you think y'all got all this stuff in common, and you're just missing them and missing them. And I think it's normal because you feel like, like this could be the one and this, that, and the third, but it happens. So now you're in a situation, especially for women, because I know I'm a woman and I know it can be hard to walk away in that situation, because a lot of women feel like, I put in all this time, I don't want to give up, I feel like this can be fixed, I want to try it out, I want to keep trying, I want to keep trying. And I think another reason is it could be it could be children involved, and you really want your family to work. It could be stuff like that. And it also could be because maybe you feel like you're not pretty enough, or you feel like that you're not on the level to leave him because you felt like that's the best thing that you could get, when it's really not. So it could be a bunch of things.
Let me make an advertisement. I'm gonna insert an advertisement for fathers now. Of course, there are some men and women who are just sociopathic abusers. That's going to happen in every culture, every group of people on earth. They're just sociopathic abusers. But the scale at which this happens, it can be reduced. And we have to watch very closely our daughters and who they associate with. Some men hide it. So I'm not talking about those men that hide it, especially the ones who put on the brave face, like I said, the sociopaths. Any man could choose them, but it also becomes a breeding ground when there are so many women, like here in the States, and more specifically in the Black community, who are under the covering of no man at all. This is where I believe this kind of problem is just only going to get worse before it can ever get better. Right. So they're making up their own rules of engagement on how they deal with men. And that's not safe at all, because outside of, like I said, religion and everything else, some religions, he literally is going to have to break your skull for them to remove you. But then I thought about it. Have I ever seen a man or a group of men remove a woman out of a home? And I absolutely have. I absolutely have. And it's that covering, not only of your father or any of the community itself, to say we don't want this man and his behavior associated with us, because now his behavior is so consistent, it's so bad that it looks like this group of us are like that as well. And what will we look like if we condone it? So I just think, all in all, like I said, I'm making an advertisement. Women need to understand that when you're not under the covering of a man, a lot, the scale at which things can happen to you, the probability goes up a lot, right? So, and yeah, like I said, there are some men who are just sociopaths, and those outliers and exceptions are there, but more often than not, I'm going to make sure my own daughter understands this. I mean, damn, it's going to be really bad for her. She's not going to get a break from these teachings, but I just really can't think of how much of a asshole I'd feel like if I passed her off to an abusive man. I'm going to have to go get her back, right? So
and trigger Mike. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to ask really quick, like, what are ways, like, how do you, or is there a way to help a friend who may be going through an abusive relationship? Like, I know you said you took a step back, Shaq, and Saida, I know you said you didn't want to tell your family or anything like that because of the shame and the guilt. But like, are there red flags that friends or people, loved ones, should notice? And like, is there a way to help, or do you just wait until they come to the reality of their own that it's like, this is not good for me, I'm done? And does it have to be that type of situation?
Oh man.
Go
ahead.
Like, in my opinion, there was taking accountability, of course, and I agree with Shaq and Inas. I think she mentioned earlier. There was some flags, there are some red flags, and you can see them. I could see that he had anger problems at first. Like, he will not explode and be abusive, but he had anger problems, that things that he will, minor things that he would just get mad and really, really mad. Example, he he confused the mall. We were supposed to go to the movies to one mall, and he went to the other one. I'm like, hey, I'm waiting. And he was like, no, you said it was the other one. That little thing. I said, you know what? I'm never going out with this person again. I spit up and it came on my face. But I saw the red flag. Also, I cannot blame my father because he told me. He actually told me that I was going too fast with him. So that's my accountability, because my father can tell me his advice and he can tell me, and I decided not to listen to him. That's part of also because my father cannot force me, but I can definitely need to hear him. I needed to listen to him. But I also agree, Shaq, I was vulnerable. I was coming from an engagement, and that person was doing really bad, and I decided to leave him. So I was very vulnerable at that time. That's the accountability I can take on all this. Now, for the question that you ask about the flags that you, or things that you will show, characteristics that you will show that your people might see, I remember my sister telling me that I was not the joyful person that I am. I actually lost my identity. That's the way I can describe it, the best. Like, I didn't know I look at myself in the mirror and I didn't know who I was. I didn't have a style. I wasn't even picking clothes to dress nice. I was just picking clothes to wear something, put something, to not be naked, but not like to look good. And that was not my normal self. So they used to say that I was angry all the time. So all the negative aspects that he had, he created a mini me version. So that was me. And I remember like my coworkers, like I didn't have friends. He used everybody that was my friend used to, like, if it was girls, they were hoes to him. You know, that he started like doing that, what Shaq said, like putting me aside from everybody. So yeah, you know, I remember specifically my sister saying that I was not the joyful person that I was before, that I became something different since I was with him. And of course, all I needed to say is, you know what, I'm going through this BS, but I didn't say. I just kept it to myself, because again, I'm a prideful person, horribly, when I'm not supposed to be pride at that moment. Because you know, I should have said something. I should have asked for help, but I was trying to pull myself out of it by myself. Yeah.
I think one thing that I really admire from my mom is that she shared these stories with me, and she helped me, unbeknownst to me at the time, of course, because I was a child, but she helped me be able to evaluate men in a way where I didn't go through the bad boy phase, or bad boys to me were like big red flags. And my mom basically just told me, like, this is what I went through, this is what I hope for you. And I took that and I ran with it. So I avoided a lot of what we would call red flag men, or F boys or things like that, because those things, those type of men could possibly lead to someone like my father. That's how I thought in my head. And to trigger Mike's point earlier, in my culture, if there is even a whiff of a man breaking a piece of hair off of a woman, they're coming to get you in your house physically, and they will hurt you. So that's a community accountability that I grew up knowing, that I will always be protected by my family, by my community. And I really wish it was like that here in the United States. But that is something that I think we need to bring back. If that was ever in the Black community in the past, I think that's something we need to bring back. And, you know, someone in the comments said, I guess maybe referring to my mom, well, you know, he didn't start off beating her up or something like that. I hate that narrative, because I just hate that narrative. However, we do have to realize that some people are just psychopaths, as Trigger Mike said. And even if my mom made him upset, made my father upset, that's no excuse to hit anybody. And then also we have to remember power dynamics. At the time, my mom was in a country and in a city that she did not know. She knew no one. And then my father purposefully moved my mom to the other side of the country, to California, where there were no Trinidadian people. There was just nothing of her culture, nothing she could relate to. So she was alone, waiting for her immigration papers with 2 children. So we have to realize that everyone's story is different, and we can't just say, oh, well, you know, antagonized him to beat you up or something like that. I think that's a horrible way to go about it. But I would hope and pray, Saida, that you please teach your daughter these things at the appropriate time, that she can avoid something like this. Because my mom talking to me, and later my father reaching out to me, had really helped with who I married today, who he's the most awesome man in the world.
Well, Trigger Mike begs to differ. I'm the most awesome man in the world, but I understand your bias to your own husband. Kudos to you.
So, does anyone else have anything that they would like to add to this topic before we close out?
Yeah, I have 2 things. So, the Curves, you asked like what we could do once someone we know is in that situation. Really make sure that you're not being judgmental. And I know sometimes as women, like, we can get so comfortable in it that it just seeps out without us realizing. In those situations, like, you have to be as sensitive as possible, because any amount of like whiff of being judgmental, that person is never going to come and open up to you. The other part of that is just be available. Even if it's just to listen, even if it's the 100th time they told you the same thing, if you just stay consistent in being available to that person when they are ready to leave, they know that they can count on you and you're not going to flake out because you were consistent with them. The last thing that I want to say, and Trigger might kind of talked about like the Black community. I think there's this thing that happens a lot when raising children, right? And I don't know that it happens so much now because I'm not too sure. I'm not around people who raise their children in that way. There's a lot of dismissing of boundaries when it comes to children, and it's taught that it's disrespectful if you assert boundaries, and I think that is an unfortunate way to have children grow up. And I'm not talking about like the super leftist liberal children raise themselves. That's not at all what I'm talking about. I'm talking about having actual, real, healthy, functional boundaries. That if you're not teaching children how to have those at a young age, they grow up into adults and go into this world not having strong boundaries, not understanding how to reinforce their boundaries, and fall victim to people who will gladly overstep very weak or non-existing boundaries. And I think it's really important that as the younger generation comes up, that we start to learn to respect their boundaries when they're real boundaries, right? And not teach them that their boundaries are meaningless.
Yeah. Dang, I wanted to add something to that and I spaced. It was really having listening to you talk, Inaz, I just realized that this is probably why most women will tell their father last. Because once you tell me, you're getting ripped out of that home. And just thinking about it now, I got a daughter. When a man puts his hands on your daughter, especially if you're traditional like me and my family are, you're calling me a bitch, and I ain't no bitch. So I'm gonna come. Yeah, it's me and you now. you know, Unfortunately, I do understand some of the difficulty with that, especially when kids are involved. So, but just hearing you talk about it and saying confide in them, try not to be judgmental, that you tell your father, that's pretty much it. So
He's
that's
gonna
unfortunate.
distract you so fast from that situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
No. But so because this show is called The Solution, before we leave, I would like for everybody to say a solution that you would bring. It could be to any of these topics. I can start off like my solution would be to ask for help. Don't be ashamed in regards to if you're suffering from abuse or someone who's been like it is okay to talk to somebody. Hell, even if it's not family or someone you feel comfortable with, I'm sure there's hotlines and all different types of ways you can get assistance, but like don't suffer in silence. And there are women who die from this, so like I think you should take it seriously.
I would say discernment and prayer prior to children and marriage, that will save your life. If you're not a religious person, you need to pay attention to whomever you're dating, whether you're a man or a woman. You need to pay attention when you think they're not looking, or when they think you're not looking. You need to pay attention. How do they react in certain situations? Do they get angry quickly? Are they good with money? Are they a provider? Or all of these little things you need to pay attention. But I would definitely say discernment and prayer prior to children and prior to marriage.
I like that. I think self-awareness is a really big thing, right? Whether it's through therapy, through spiritual advisors, whether it's mentors. I think that self-awareness is that thing that grounds you, that allows you to keep touch with reality and to really start to see the world in a way that isn't so easily influenced by other people. And I think that's the thing that I think touches on all three of the subject matters that we've touched today, in terms of grounding yourself in your values, when it comes to family, in terms of, you know, protecting yourself against potential abuse. I don't think there's any way to do it 100%. But I think that that self-awareness through tools is really important.
Oh, are you about to go, Trigger Mike? I see you come off of
No,
mute.
you go. You go.
Okay. I would say to the earlier, I guess the two topics were kind of about like, women feeling, putting their careers first and stuff like that. I just want to say like there are several different types of I have to be strong. You have to be strong. I would say the first have to be strong is like I have to be strong because I don't want no man telling me what to do. And I just think that that's a bad narrative. Like, don't force yourself to be strong because you don't want nobody to tell you what to do. Be strong because that's who you want to be, but don't be so strong to where you're running certain things away that you're going to eventually want as you get older. So that's all I wanted to say.
So, when you talk about abuse, it seems like such a one-sided thing. And as we live in the generation now that's where information is so available, it's not one-sided at all. And I'm gonna just talk to the men for a second and let you know that men need to become more astute, more realistic about what emotional abuse actually is for you. In the sense of the things people are suffering from most today, get this through your head. A woman isolating you from your children and alienating you from your children's affection is abuse. It's abuse. Do not take it lightly. Don't do the man thing where you try to write it off because you don't want to complain because you think your homie's going to call you a bitch. It's abuse. You I understand what has traditionally been done, and you feel helpless and there's no way to really get the attention of anyone, not even a judge, not a lawyer, or anyone to take this type of case seriously. But any way you can, make documentation of it, because we're going into a time now where it doesn't look like anyone is going to even the score so men can play. Right. So outside of just simply for your children alone, you need to understand, exactly what's going on so you can at least help them, or make an effort to be in their life. And I feel like more men putting their heads together and putting the word out that you can talk to me. I can tell you what happened to me. I can tell you what I did and how I was able to form a relationship with my kids will be better off for men in general.
Um, so I never feel like I could give a good advice. Like, I can give my opinion about things. People will decide to take your advice, or not, or hear it out. Even though I've been in the situation, it's easier to say than done. I agree with everything you guys say. I definitely agree. But once you are in the position, it's so hard. So I think the best thing to do is avoid to get into that situation, and taking accountability again, look at the red flags, and if you don't feel like something is right, don't go in there because it's not right. When it looks like shit or smells like shit, it's probably shit. um that's something I learned along the way. Um and after all I've been through all this, and I can just say that I had to heal. Healing is important. So I think I wouldn't be the person that I am now. I wouldn't have been able to forgive him and do the things that I'm doing. I have a great relationship with him to the point that he said I get emotional. He says that we are better as friends than we were as partners. I never took his daughter away from him. I never did none of that. So it was never a revenge, not even a piece of that in my heart. And I think that's why he's able to see it now. I'm not trying to change him. I don't think he's going to change. I hope he does because I wish him well. And that I can only share my experience, but at the end of the day it's more like try to avoid getting into it. And if you don't know if you're being abused verbally, emotionally, I mean, I think everybody knows what physical abuse is, but some people, think it's okay, but some people don't know that this thing starts with the verbal or the emotional part first. So if you don't know what is to be emotional abused or verbally, try to ask information. If you don't want to ask someone, like ask a random person, like, what do you think verbal abuse is? you know that's the only thing I can say, because sometimes we are ashamed to ask people that are close to us. So that's all I can say.
I thank you so much for sharing. And Trigger, I really do appreciate the side of it that you brought up. Um like, because I've dated a guy who his baby's mother was just being a complete bitch. I mean, I'm just gonna say what it is, and she was making it really hard for him to see his kid, and she was giving him problems. And like, I didn't know how to help, because it's like, what can I do? Like, the majority of the time the court is in favor of the woman, and like, I don't even know what that feels like mentally. Like, I have a hard time going away from my son just for a day or two. You know what I mean? Like, I cannot imagine what it would be like if someone was pretty much saying, you can't have your kid, you're giving me shit about it, and he's just waiting for a court date just to be able to like plead his. But it's not that way for women. You know what I mean? Like, it's always in favor of women. So like, and I can't even imagine what that, like, that mental state would feel like. So like, I feel for you. And I appreciate like you bringing that up as far as the men go.
I don't feel for me, but there's
Not
a lot of
you.
men out.
I
I
mean,
was
I
about to
didn't mean
say.
you, but like, feel for the men.
I was about to say that shit.
Why are you
God,
going through
please.
that?
I don't know. I will go scorched earth. I don't want to be on the news.
No, I feel
But
for the.
no, too many men are going.
But we do have some super chats before we close out here.
Still low key 21, $10. Question for the panel: is living in a sexless marriage abuse? Why or why not? Great combo. I can say yes.
Hell yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah, it
think
is a
so.
form of abuse for
It
sure.
is.
Yes.
Ray Alexander, $10. Single, childless millennial women out earn millennial men. This generation of women has adapted to restructuring of the U.S. economy better than their male peers. Workplace salaries, women on top. I guess that's the source of his statement.
Well, how can that be when there's a gender pay gap? I don't. Never mind.
Well, there's a lot of entrepreneurs, like women who are,
I don't
but go
think
ahead.
that stat is factoring in. I think that's just strictly corporate.
Well, it's
Oh,
not
okay,
factoring in a
okay.
lot that most men are like, I'm sorry, the jail population of men and all of that, and over the time. But no, it's in the 20s and 30s before women take that break, and women are having children later, so women can be competitive much longer. So, and more women are educated, which So yeah,
And
true statement.
also,
But
it is also just like strictly to millennials. It's not counting the boomers that are still holding the upper echelons of the majority of the corporate world. So it is like that small age gap population. Marriage, politics, and sports, $5. In the modern non-secular world, the term "his money is our money, her money is her money" means to hell with budget. I think that's a fair
yep.
statement.
I mean, she just want to spend. Listen, I just got to say this because my wife is a high earning woman. Okay, her money comes to my bank account. All right. There are ways to do this to where it's family oriented, service oriented, future and legacy oriented. I don't know why people think, and I say this about married people all the time. People who do this the right way, we don't keep score on where the hell the money comes from. If you have a plan, get it while the getting's good. You see what I'm saying? Like, get it if it's all going to the same plan. Get it while the getting is good. Everybody else in the world is keeping score, and we're out here building literally a entire legacy for our children's children. So focus has a lot to do with that, and I wish people would just focus.
I hate when women who make so much money say, well, I'm going to be the boss of the house or blah, blah, blah. Like my husband makes probably 3 or 4 times that I make, but he always comes to me like, hey, babe, should we do this? What do you think? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, wow, like, even though I make diddly squat compared to him, he's still giving me the equal amount of say so in the household. Where some women, they're like, I make more, so I'm gonna do this and then I'm like,
Well,
you're power hungry, lady.
well, you got to understand how the world got to where it's at, but that's a topic for another day. And so is power safe? That's what we're saying. There are numerous studies that have been done and say if women have power, they will lord it over men. They will start more war, not less war. They'll start more war than men. So that's what men do. I just want people to normalize what's actually going on. We give too much power and too much what do you call airtime to people who the corrupt and the toxic. Literally, that's what most husbands do. Hey, babe, that literally is my partner. It's the reason I married my wife. I need a capable, competent woman to help me with this. So it's not uncommon at all.
I would love
You
for
know
that.
what? You know what? Something that I like to hear for what you both said is that even though the man is asking the woman, like, what do you think about this? It's not that she has the last word, but for us as women, we don't want to have the last word. We're gonna follow, your decision, but at least you made us involved and you consider our opinion, even if you're not going to say what we're saying. It's just making us part, and we love that. We feel like someone is hearing, and that's what we want. So and a lot of men tend to confuse that part because it's not, no, I don't have to tell you. Well, you don't have to, but you also don't have to not tell me, like you can also hear me out, and then if you don't think it's okay, then just move on and make the decision.
If people need proof on just how much men defer to their wives to make certain decisions, go ask who decision was it to move into that house. It's the woman. Go ask whose decision was it to send those kids to that private school or that charter school. The woman. Who women
Furniture.
make all of these decisions.
I'm telling you,
What food you're eating.
when my eyes get big and I'm like, oh, babe, look at that. He buys it for me. I don't even say, babe, I want it. I'm just like, oh, and he's like, yep. It's my influence is sometimes to his detriment. I'm like, dang, I didn't want him to spend all that money, but just because that made my eyes lit up or I got happy, he bought it for me or he did these things for me. And it's crazy how we think men are just these big bad wolves. They want to be there for us. They want to help us. They want to make us happy too. I just wish more women knew that.
Yep. Sometimes I'm just sharing a meme, sharing something. It's like noted. Like if I want it, and I'm like, no, I'm just sharing.
Nice.
I appreciate all the perspectives. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight and watching The Solution. We'll be back next Monday. You guys have a great night.
Have a great night.